Now we have a session by Mr. Diwakar Dayal, Regional Director, SentinelOne, on the topic The End of Ransomware with Autonomous Cybersecurity. From ransomware to botnets and everything in between, SentinelOne's behavioral AI blocks the most lethal machine based attacks across all major vectors and without dependency on connectivity, cloud, latency, or human intervention, there is no shrink in your armor. That's the power of autonomous cybersecurity. Welcome, Mr. Dayal.
Hey, good day, everyone, and hopefully everybody's having a good time at the ET CISO Decrypt session. My name is Diwakar, and really, I want to the next 15 minutes take you through a very interesting story around how we are defending against ransomware with the use of autonomous cybersecurity today. Really, understand why traditional protective approaches are no longer effective enough, and how really the complexities has made CISO's ability to respond even more difficult in today's time, right? And hopefully, through the end of the session, you will get to understand the importance of automation in the response in terms of how there is a paradigm shift that we can do to really defend ourselves, right? And having said that, last year has been tough on all of us. It's taken a huge toll on our security leaders and also, IT leaders as such. While most organizations have had been talking about planning a digital transformation, right, for almost a decade now, uh, literally, no one expected that suddenly, in a 3-year roadmap of digital transformation, would have really ended up in 3 weeks to be executed, and that put a lot of stress in terms of really testing the systems that we had out there, in terms of how do we defend against different attacks that we are seeing from a landscape perspective. And I've spent almost over 2 decades in cybersecurity, and I can tell you that while we have it's always been a cat and mouse game. Somewhere it's always been that cybersecurity has to be doing a catch up in terms of how we've responded to threats, right? And the industry more or less has been more and more reactive by nature. And the reason for that is simply because of the amount of data that we are seeing, right? The data overload, but also because of the lack of the bigger picture, right? In terms of machine speed understanding of the context and being able to really then take decisions, right, without really getting into manual threat hunting, and have confidence in terms of predicting threats, which today really is not so easy. I like to kind of give a context in terms of the problem we have today from where it has come through, right? And really, security for a long, long time was all about protecting networks, about firewalls and data centers and whatnot, right? But what we've seen in the last couple of, obviously, from the start of the pandemic, is the endpoint has kind of become the new perimeter, right? It's become the new file server, it's become the new workstation, it's become the new firewall, IPS, all rolled into one. And hence, there is this need to really protect everything in real time, right? Every time, irrespective of whether the user or the system is online or offline. And really, if you take a couple of steps back in terms of how this stage has evolved, is in the last maybe 20 odd years, we have seen different names, right, or jargons in terms of what we called them, right, either virus or spywares and spams and different kinds of threats that were kind of coming upon enterprises. And we did have technologies that defended them, right? And they did them pretty well. And it worked at a different era because most of them could be detected through signatures, right? Of course, it did not have it lacked the coverage and scale model to kind of move on. But the antivirus era pretty much had some good technology defending against problems at those times. But what happened in the last maybe 10 odd years is that an evolution of going beyond signature based attacks, right? And that's where if you see things changed with regards to advanced persistent threats, with regards to ransomwares and whatnot, where we had to really come up with a different way to defend against these attacks. And that is where a lot of security vendors kind of went into a cloud-based model to really deliver superior telemetry, to kind of understand maybe in a sandbox environment in terms of what's really happening with regards to the malwares and threats. And again, that really worked well for some time, and we have seen a lot of technologies that kind of peaked in the last 5-10 years. But where we are coming in today really is a dramatically changing landscape, right? And especially with the WFH, where each one is on his own. Right, the problems that we're seeing around the new age ransomwares, the problems we stay seeing around, supply chain attacks, these have kind of forced security teams and IT teams to rethink their security strategy, right? And a lot of these new age attacks are, they kind of are, they're impossible or literally to be defended by the traditional signature based technologies, or even the traditional cloud based technologies that kind of worked well for maybe last couple of years. And that is where we believe that there is a need in the industry, that we need to move beyond legacy tools in terms of protecting our customers and providing what we call a real time response era. Well, if you're a CISO, or if you're doing a CISO's role, or if you're part of a security operations team, my heart goes out to you, right? It is a tough job, and especially in the last 18 months, where every day, every second, we were unprepared, and the CISOs really went in through a stress test of their, entire security policy and the postures that they've kind of defined for their environment, right? All that got aggravated by the work from home scenario. I'm not going to talk about that, but all of you know that this, with the second wave, and then maybe the third wave at some point, is continuing to really test the systems that we have got out there in terms of how do we, be able to defend in real time, these kind of problems. Second is that, yes, when we did choose to go, completely online, when we did cut the roadmap of 3 years to 3 weeks, there were still a lot of legacy systems, and they still exist, right? And they're not helping fight the case that while we try and change a lot of new age security softwares and processes and systems, the traditional and legacy systems are still struggling to be keeping the pace with that investments. Third, of course, is that it is most of the technologies today are completely dependent on anything cloud, right? And the challenge with landscape in India, as most of us know, that especially in class 2 and class 3 cities, right, as we go deeper, right, it is even to get connected to a good amount of bandwidth is a challenge. So if you did have solutions that kind of depended completely to be delivered by cloud, it would be basically putting a lot of challenge on the end user and the system. And last, of course, is that there is continues to be a skill gap, which exists in the industry, which basically means not just do you have to look at what are the latest platforms that you want to invest in, but also get the right kind of people to look at it and kind of rectify that. And part of the job, coming into SentinelOne is I've had the opportunity to talk to almost tons and tons of CISOs and CIOs in terms of what they are doing today with their existing endpoint security technology. And really, what I hear clearly is something that I kind of want to share with the audience out here. One, of course, is there are too many tools, right? And a complete dependency on the cloud to deliver any solution. There are sometimes multiple agents, right? For one for maybe clients, endpoint, one for servers, multiple consoles, and that kind of puts a lot of operational expense and load. And that is really testing, especially given that the security teams are sitting, somewhere at home and not really, a traditional SOC or a data center. And second, of course, is the noise to signal ratio. While a lot of new age EDRs, while they come with a lot of cutting edge, bleeding edge technology, they do generate a lot of noise, right? And then again, they come back and ask you to buy their MDR services and whatnot, just to kind of basically get the customers to pay for human intervention, and that's not working well, right? And also, a lot of what they discover is not really mapped to MITRE, which kind of makes it too many false positives, and you're putting a lot of good money behind, again, a lot of bad money that you may have invested, right, from a technology perspective. The third also is that there's a lot of confusion in terms of what is really a great endpoint security software, right? Is it about the efficacy to stop malware attacks, or is it about providing these stuff like web filtering, disk encryption, DLPs, and sandboxing, which may be a great strategy overall, but really not defending confidently the endpoints where they need to be defended, especially WFH. Also, in terms of the blind spots, right? Different agents looking at different kinds of network, and with IT and IoT converging, right? Is it possible, right, to kind of single down on a single console, minimal agents to kind of look at that environment? And also from WFH perspective, the biggest problem today we're seeing is really this inability for IT and security teams to kind of respond to any incidents, right? If the user is sitting somewhere in remote towns, right, in Uttaranchal or maybe in Tamil Nadu, deep inside, how do you really get to kind of clean the systems, right, restore the files, and really get the business back to operation? So these seem to be problems that customers today are still grappling with, and that is where we believe that there is an opportunity to kind of move away from these problems and embrace and adopt a new way of solving this. Of course, the battle that we've seen in the last couple of years is getting intense between the whole the adversaries in the hacking community out there and the defenders and the enterprises, right? And for us, the key to our success really depends on how can we automatically respond, and for that to happen, really, there needs to be lesser and lesser human intervention and more machine led automation, right? And that is where artificial intelligence and ML technologies are making a difference. And of course, there will still be need for human beings, but at least they will basically see a lot more clear and clean data than a lot of noise and garbage, which typically gets thrown by traditional and conventional technologies. So really, if I had to put it in a nutshell, what is that customers and the security architects can really look at is one, have the ability to detect without any kind of dependence on cloud or other systems or even prior knowledge of threats, right, in real time. And that's what we mean by autonomous security. Second is machine speed over human speed, which is what I spoke about in the previous slide, which is all about automation. Third is the ability to correlate, right? Talk to each other and make more data driven decisions, right? Reduce the workload of the analyst. And hopefully that can then improve the actionability of detections and basically give you a little more real time enforcement that today is really missing. Fourth is also, give the CISOs the power to basically follow, right? Lead, then follow. Today, they're more or less following, IT, more or less following shadow IT as an example, right? But really give you the power to kind of embrace changes from a business point of view, but also be able to support them, right? Defending them in real time. And all of that, if it's possible, with one platform. So what does SentinelOne really deliver? We deliver an autonomous cybersecurity. We primarily have one single agent. It's a patented, code, completely AI driven. It eliminates dependency on connectivity, cloud latency, signatures, and human intervention. It's validated by the who's who in terms of the MITREs, the Magic Quadrant in Gartner leadership, and of course the peer insights within Gartner itself. It's one single agent for all kind of devices, all kind of OSs, right? Be it Linux versions, Windows, MacBooks, including cloud workloads and IoT devices as well, right? And most importantly, is can it respond and remediate in real time? Also give you the power of really remediation with forensics, right? Which primarily means that you're not just be able to do a one-click, kill, quarantine, remediate, but also help you build a storyline in terms of really helping you with easy investigations when incidents do occur. And lastly, is that if at all you do get attacked, right, or there's a breach, is there a possibility to really bring the machine back to life, right, without physically touching that device? Rewind for ransomware or basically one-click rollback, a patented technology, again, driven by our AI, helps customers to really navigate through these difficult WH scenarios, right? All of that is delivered by the Singularity platform, which is obviously AI powered XDR eventually. And what it does is it kind of marries, right, the entire telemetry that you see primarily from the endpoint and EDR vector into other areas and other vectors as well to kind of help tackle and battle in real time, right? And all of this in terms of making sure that one, we're not replacing your existing investments, right? We're not asking you to rip and replace what you already have, but actually coexist and work with your existing investments in terms that can consolidate. Second is that all your current technologies, be it your current SIEM, be it your current ITSM technologies, all of them can be seamlessly and stress-free integrated into the SentinelOne platform as well, right? Both in terms of both ways traffic can be exchanged. And lastly, is that when customers have implemented Singularity Platform, they have seen a significant return on investments in terms of how they are able to manage their endpoints, right? Who's SentinelOne? 30 seconds. Hey, we are one of the youngest and fastest growing companies out there.